Hey, it's Em, and I am coming off of a weekend in Vegas. We landed at 1 a.m. last night, or this morning, I guess, really. So you don't get the gussied up version of me today because that's not happening on 3 days of not quite enough sleep. But I did, while I was traveling, finish reading a book, and we're going to talk about it. Okay, so the book I finished was The Secret Lives of Country Gentlemen by K.J. Charles. I have never read anything by this author before, but apparently she's pretty popular in like historical male romance circles. I found this at my library and I had kind of heard of it. I'd seen it around, I think. I'm not sure where. It wasn't specifically recommended to me or anything. It was just one of those things that I was vaguely aware of. But I saw it and I just decided, oh, I'll pick it up and give it a try. And so I did. The story, if I can encapsulate, Gareth and Joss are, well, this is all in the first pages, so not a spoiler. They have spent a week together meeting at an inn in London that I guess is friendly to gay encounters. And but they know each other only as London because Gareth is from London, and Kent because Joss is from Kent. Within the first few pages, though, Joss tells Gareth that he needs to go home back to Kent, but he's hoping that they can meet up again, and Gareth takes it very poorly and breaks up with, or basically just says, you know what, don't bother contacting me again. This has been fun, but we don't need to make it an ongoing thing. Skip ahead just a couple days. Oddly convenient timing. Gareth gets a note saying that his estranged father has died and he is now the Baronet Inglis, I guess is how you say it, I-N-G-L-I-S. And he ends up moving to Kent, where, of course, surprise, surprise, he crosses paths with Joss again. And now they've learned each other's actual names and are in each other's like environs. This could have been actually really fun and funny, but the actual story is kind of, it turns out Joss is and spoilers, if you don't want to know any more about the story than that, you should probably stop now, because now we're going to talk a little bit about some of what goes on. Joss is actually a free trader, which, or at least that's, you know, obviously how he's describing it. Gareth would say he's a smuggler. This is 1810, so there's the war with France happening, and Joss and his family are running goods to and from France, you know, illegally. And Gareth is a very prim and proper young man and is outraged by this. Again, this could have been fodder for comedy and interesting character building, but there's a lot going on in this book, and not all of it is super interesting, and a lot of it is repetitive, and that was some of my issues with the book. But I guess it turns out that Gareth's estranged father was maybe also doing some smuggling or speculating. He had something to do with 10,000 missing guineas, and Gareth's uncle snooping around looking for this money, and his cousin, and a rival smuggler family also kind of, you know, nosing around. And it's very obvious to me, as somebody who reads a lot maybe, that the map on the wall, and let me explain, this is one of, I think, a duology is what I read, but so you don't find out about the 10,000 guineas because we're busy dealing with family stuff and threats, but there's a map on Gareth's father's wall that supposedly marks places where he found interesting beetles and things because his father was known to wander the marsh and was a naturalist, okay? Which Gareth starts to kind of get into as a way to kind of maybe feel some kind of connection to his father, the father that didn't want him, by the way. But, and I'm like, well, or the marks on the map might be where he's hidden money and goods and stuff. I don't know. That seems obvious to me as a reader, but they mention the map 2-3 times, but nobody ever goes, hey, wait a minute, why are we assuming these things on the map are... Anyway, that doesn't get answered, it doesn't get broached. I don't know if in the next book it will. There's a younger character named Luke, who, towards the end of the book, it's pointed out that Luke has not... Luke is kind of being cagey about the 10,000 guinea thing. Like, maybe he knows where it is or he has an idea because they've already built up. Luke is really smart and he actually should be going away to school. He could do better than just being a smuggler. So anyway, overall thoughts. I gave this a 2.65. It was a solid 3 until about the last 50 pages where I finally was just kind of skimming because like all of the dialogue and the back and forth I was just like, can we just... It's like I said, there are a lot of repetitive thoughts and conversations between Gareth and Joss as they negotiate their relationship, but their relationship is never... As much as we're being told there's a conflict, they're getting together and having sex regularly, and they're saying, I love you, and then they'll have a little tiff, and they'll fall out, and then they get back together. It's not, for me, for the kind of things I like to read, this was not very tense or interesting, as a romance, right? This is more plotty than romancy for me. I would have preferred more romance and maybe a little less plot and things going on. But also okay, I'm just gonna show you the image here. So there's when they introduce Joss or Kent at the beginning of the book, they talk about his tan skin, dark skin. I can't remember the phrasing, but I remember thinking, I don't know if I'm supposed to see this person as black or like biracial maybe, or if he's just dark because he works in the sun. I mean, he's obviously some kind of laborer, it wasn't clear. And then later on in the book, we learned that Joss's grandfather was a black slave who came from Georgia in the United States. And again, we're sort of, I guess, supposed to, he and his sister are the only ones that color in their family. So I guess his dad, Joss's dad, who is dead, might have been the grandfather's son, and the mom and the rest of the family are white. It's especially since Luke, who is Joss's nephew, is blonde and blue-eyed and pale. So it's like touched upon, but it was still a little confusing for me. And in this picture on the cover, I'm like, I wouldn't read this as a black person. I don't know who did the illustration, but like it didn't for me like necessarily accurately, unless this is what he's supposed to look like. And then if it is, the description in the book was confusing. The long black hair, yes, we were told about that, and then we were told repeatedly that Gareth is pale and, tall and thin and very pale. And again, some of the repetition where Joss just tells like Gareth over and over, you're so lovely, you're, and all this stuff just over and over. And I'm like, God, we get it. He thinks, and then like Gareth thinking about it later, oh, Joss thinks I'm lovely. And, I'm just like, okay, we could have shaved some words off of this book a little bit. yeah, like I would have liked the relationship more central and a little less plot, a little less repetition, a little more tension between the two, male leads. All of the tension. A lot of the tension is meant to come, I guess, from the threat of being discovered and also the threat of being murdered by other smugglers, people looking for this money, and the uncle, trying to basically blackmail Gareth for the 10,000 guineas and things like just stuff like that. I don't know. Because I don't like mob stories, I think for me this kind of lands in a similar place where, there's extortion and there's rival families like trying to, their turf or whatever. I don't know. It's not my thing. So I like I said, I probably won't read the next book. I didn't enjoy this one enough for that. I didn't even read there's a there's a sample chapter at the back of the next book, which I guess is coming this September or this month. This is September. I don't even know when I am anymore. Okay, but yeah, I don't, and it's now it's 1823, so I'm guessing Luke will be older because Luke is like, I don't know, 12, 13, 14. So this is 13 years later, so he's a grown man maybe. I don't even know, but like I don't care enough about any of these characters. There was no other ancillary character in this story that I'm like, yeah, I want to read a book about them. Even though I did like Luke, I liked Gareth's kind of inherited housekeeper, Catherine, his half-sister, Cecily. I did like them. I found them, interesting, and they didn't irk me the way some of the other characters did. But Joss's grandfather, we see only a little of him, but he was actually a pretty good character too. There were so many characters and there was so much going on. I just couldn't feel an attachment to any of them. And then I didn't really feel an attachment to either of the leads. Gareth at the beginning of this book was so just almost intolerable. I almost put this book down because of him, but I was like, well, I mean, I was like, okay, but this is where we're starting. Ideally, where he ends is a little better, and it is, but it's still a little soppy, and I just wasn't feeling the chemistry between Gareth and Joss the way I think I'm meant to. And that could just be a me thing. Like I said, I've never read anything by this author. I know she's very popular. Some of the reviews I read after the fact, because I always, after I do my review, I like to go see what other people say, were saying that maybe it sounds like she started as a self-pubbed author and got picked up based on, I assume, a fair amount of popularity. But anyway... Yeah, so for me, those last 50 pages, because I started skimming just to get to the end, and it ends up as a typical damsel rescue kind of thing, I knocked it down a little. 2.65, which on Goodreads was still a 3-star read, but I wouldn't say I would maybe try this author again, some other work of hers, but I'm not interested enough in these people, in this story, in this setting, or any of those things to keep reading in this particular world. Sometimes the descriptions of the marsh were confusing, and I was having trouble picturing things, which is weird because they're oddly detailed, and yet still I wasn't able to put it together in my head. I almost am like, can I have pictures? Can I have a drawing or something in here, please? I think the author said somewhere that they actually visited this place, so I think it's almost like when you know a place, you write about it as if everyone knows it, and your average reader does not know this place, I don't think. And you know, I guess it was enough for me to get by, obviously, but I was having a really difficult time visualizing some of the settings for this, and that was, you know, that detracted as well from the reading of it. But anyway, that is The Secret Lives of Country Gentlemen by K.J. Charles. If you've read it or any other books by her, let me know in the comments what you thought, or if there's any other books that you think I should read instead by this author, or something in this vein, a historical, you know, male romance. My book Fayburn falls into that category if you like that kind of thing, and mine's a little bit more fairy tale-ish. It's got a little bit of fantasy in it and like some comic banter that this didn't really supply. I was hoping for something a little bit lighter and funnier than what I got. But anyway, until next time, I should say. Until next time, take care.